You know, there is a very specific, almost uniquely modern kind of anxiety that comes with a professional phone call.
Oh, yeah. The dreaded phone interview. It's the worst.
Right. Like, picture this. You are sitting in your living room, you're staring at a blank wall, and you're just waiting for your phone to ring for this major interview.
And your heart is just pounding.
Exactly. Because you can't rely on a firm handshake, right?
Yeah.
You can't make reassuring eye contact, and you absolutely cannot read the room or, look at their body language to see how you're doing.
You are, for all intents and purposes, flying completely blind.
Yeah, you really are. So welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We have a highly practical and honestly surprisingly psychological source to guide us through this exact scenario today.
It's a really great one.
It is. It's a comprehensive script breakdown from a language learning video by a duo named Emma and Jack. They run the channel Talk Emma, and the video is titled 50 Plus Useful Phrases for a Phone Interview in English.
And, while their explicit target audience happens to be people learning English as a second language, the underlying mechanics of what they are teaching are completely universal.
Right, like it doesn't matter what your first language is.
Exactly. Anyone who has ever felt their heart rate spike before a professional call can extract massive value from this because they are fundamentally teaching the architecture of a professional interaction.
Yeah, and so our mission for this deep dive is to look at this source not just as like a simple vocabulary lesson, but as a psychological blueprint.
Because that's what it really is.
Right. We're going to examine how you construct a persona of total confidence, impeccable organization, and high-level professionalism when you have absolutely nothing to rely on but the sound of your own voice. Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to really understand the mechanics at play here, we have to completely reframe our timeline of when an interview actually starts.
Oh, yeah, this blew my mind a little bit.
Right. Because most of us operate under the assumption that the interview begins the second we answer the phone, clear our throat, and say hello.
Yeah, like that's when the clock starts.
But the source material dismantles that idea entirely. The interview actually starts the moment they first contact you to schedule the call.
The pregame. The invisible handshake, basically.
Yes, the invisible handshake.
Because the source provides these highly specific scheduling phrases that set the tone days before you ever even speak to them.
What kind of phrases are we talking about?
Things like, could you please confirm the date and time? Or could you tell me who I will be speaking with? And actually, my absolute favorite one is there anything I should prepare before the call?
What's fascinating here is we really need to look at the psychology of what those specific phrases are doing, because it really comes down to a concept of status.
Status, like power dynamics.
Exactly. When you're looking for a job, it is incredibly easy to fall into a low status mindset.
Right, you're just begging for a job.
Yeah, you feel like a supplicant. You are a job seeker waiting to be chosen by the gatekeepers, which inherently puts the interviewer in a high status position.
That makes total sense. So how do those phrases fix that?
Well, by proactively asking who you'll be speaking with or what you can prepare, you are doing psychological work to neutralize that gap. You are establishing peer-to-peer status before the call even happens.
Okay, I see. You're claiming agency.
Exactly. You are treating the interview as a collaborative meeting between equals rather than a one-way interrogation where you just, show up to be judged.
Right. It frames you as an organized professional who actually values their own time and preparation just as much as the company's.
It really does.
I always think about this phase like a movie trailer.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, when you watch a brilliantly edited trailer, it sets your expectations, right? It dictates the tone and it builds the hype before the main event even begins.
Right. You're already excited for the movie.
Exactly. If your scheduling emails are chaotic or reactive or entirely passive, the interviewer is subconsciously expecting a chaotic or passive candidate.
That is such a good point.
But if you use these crisp, proactive phrases to claim that peer-to-peer status, you have already primed their brain to respect you before the phone ever rings.
And then eventually the phone actually does ring.
Mm-hmm.
And the source places a massive emphasis on the first 60 seconds of that audio connection.
The critical window.
Yeah. They outline phrases like, "Good morning, this is Emma speaking, and thank you so much for calling. I have been looking forward to this."
Classic polite openers.
Right. But they stress that sounding calm, clear, and positive is non-negotiable. And the ultimate mechanical tip they provide here, and this is crucial, is that you have to physically smile while you speak.
Ah, the audible smile.
The audible smile, exactly.
Which It sounds like a cheesy corporate buzzword, but there is actual physical science behind it.
Oh, totally.
Because when you pull your cheeks back to smile, you literally change the shape of your vocal tract. It raises the pitch of your voice slightly, and it alters the resonant frequencies.
So it actually sounds different to the listener.
Yeah, it makes the tone inherently brighter. The interviewer can literally hear the physical state of your face through the phone.
That is wild. And it's so important because you lack the visual cues of nodding or smiling or making eye contact. So your voice is suddenly forced to do double duty.
Right. It has to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it has to convey the factual information of your answers, but it also has to carry the entire emotional weight of the interaction.
That's a lot of pressure on just your vocal cords.
It is. So that enthusiasm in the first 60 seconds, cemented by that physical manipulation of your vocal tract, establishes a solid baseline of positive energy.
And you are really going to need that baseline because the balance of power in the interview is about to shift.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
Yeah. You move past the pleasantries and you inevitably hit the prompt that launches the formal interview. Tell me about yourself.
Oh, man. The prompt that strikes fear into the hearts of candidates everywhere.
It's terrifying because of how broad it is. Like, you could theoretically start talking about your childhood, your hobbies, the city you grew up in.
I've definitely rambled on that question before.
We all have. But the source provides a very strict, highly structured framework to keep the candidate in control of the narrative. They basically script out the professional pitch with fill-in-the-blank precision.
What's the formula they use?
So you start with your tenure. I have been working in this field for X years. Then your foundation, my background is in. Then your current status, I am currently working as a teller. And you cap it off with your motivation I am particularly passionate about.
And they pair this formula with a strict boundary, right? They say your answers should be exactly 60 to 90 seconds long.
Yeah, not too short, not too long.
Furthermore, they insist you absolutely must prepare this answer before the interview and practice it out loud at home.
Okay, I have to push back on that requirement a little bit.
Really? Why?
Well, if a candidate strictly rehearses a 90-second elevator pitch out loud at home over and over again, don't they run a massive risk of sounding like a robot reading a teleprompter?
I can see why you'd think that.
Like, there is nothing worse than an interviewer asking a conversational question and the candidate suddenly launching into this monotone, pre-recorded monologue.
That is a very common fear, but it actually fundamentally misunderstands the mechanism of why we rehearse.
Okay, explain that to me.
Practicing out loud isn't about turning yourself into a robot. It is about establishing a cognitive safety net.
A cognitive safety net.
Yeah. Think about the immense mental energy required during a phone interview. Your brain is working in absolute overdrive. You're actively listening to the interviewer's tone. You are monitoring your own breathing. You are trying to maintain that audible smile we just talked about.
Right, and you're worrying about what question comes next.
Exactly. So your mental RAM is maxed out.
It's like a computer that has too many heavy applications running at the same time. The processor just starts to lag.
That is the perfect analogy. If you are using your active processing power, your mental RAM, to invent your professional life story on the spot, you are going to crash.
You'll start saying, and every other word.
You will ramble, you will use filler words, or you will completely forget the most crucial details of your own resume. By knowing the core structure of that 90-second pitch by heart, you offload that task from your active RAM.
Okay, I see the logic in offloading the processing power, but how do you actually avoid the trap of sounding overly rehearsed?
By internalizing the structure rather than memorizing the script word for word.
Oh, so just knowing the beats.
Right. When the framework is locked in, when you know you're going from tenure to foundation to current status to passion, you aren't panicking to find the right sequence of events.
Because the sequence is already decided.
Exactly.
Right.
Because that sequence is safely stored away, you can use all of your active mental RAM to focus entirely on your delivery. You can focus on your pacing, your warmth, and your natural charisma.
You are automating the navigation so you can actually enjoy driving the car.
Precisely.
And the source ties this smoothly into discussing the company itself. Once you have pitched yourself, you transition to why you are actually on the phone with them.
Right, showing that you actually care about their business.
Yeah, they suggest using phrases like, I admire the company's values, especially the specific value. It is a deliberate signal that you did the homework.
It bridges the gap between your past and their future. You've just spent 90 seconds establishing your professional identity, and by immediately pivoting to their specific values, you are explicitly stating how your narrative aligns with their corporate goals.
Now, we reach the critical pivot point of the call. You've nailed the pitch, you sounded confident, you smiled, you proved you did your research.
Feeling good?
You held all the power because you were delivering a narrative you controlled. But the honeymoon phase is over. The interviewer is now going to test your agility.
Here come the hard questions.
We are entering the unscripted minefield of difficult questions.
And this is where the true assessment happens.
Yeah.
Because it is relatively easy to sound competent when you are delivering a practiced pitch.
Right. Anyone can read a script.
But the mechanism of a rigorous interview is designed to see how you maintain that professional persona when you are put on the spot, or when you are forced to discuss uncomfortable topics.
And the source highlights the absolute classic trap. What is your biggest weakness?
Oh, everybody hates this one.
It's the worst, but the framework they provide pairs an area of improvement with a concrete action.
Okay, so what's the example they use?
The specific example they give is, one area I am working to improve is public speaking. I have been attending a weekly speaking club to build my confidence.
It is an elegant formula on paper. You acknowledge a flaw to demonstrate humility, but you immediately neutralize it with a proactive, tangible solution.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's be entirely honest. Isn't claiming I'm working on public speaking just a massive cliche at this point?
It definitely is.
Like every hiring manager alive has heard that a million times. It feels like the modern equivalent of someone sitting down and saying, my biggest weakness is that I just care too much, or I'm a perfectionist.
Right, a humble brag.
Exactly. It feels like a dodge.
This raises an important question about what the interviewer is actually testing with that prompt. Because the truth is, the specific weakness you choose to reveal matters significantly less than the formula you use to deliver it.
Wait, so the hiring manager doesn't actually care if you happen to be bad at giving presentations?
In most roles, no.
Huh?
Unless you are applying to be a spokesperson,
What are they looking for?
what they are actively testing is your self-awareness and your problem-solving agility. The secret sauce of this interaction is demonstrating a proactive, growth-oriented mindset.
Ah, I get it.
The critical part of the phrase isn't public speaking. The critical part is the action I have been attending a weekly speaking club.
Right. It proves that when you encounter a deficit in your own skill set, your instinct isn't to wallow in it or hide it or make excuses. Your instinct is to engineer a solution.
That is the character trait they are trying to hire. They want to know how you react to your own shortcomings.
And this exact same psychology applies to another major landmine the source mentions. Why did you leave your last job?
Oh, that's a dangerous one.
Very. The absolute non-negotiable rule provided by Emma and Jack is to always stay positive and never speak negatively of a past employer.
Never, ever badmouth the old boss.
Never. They suggest utilizing phrases like, I am looking for a new challenge and an opportunity to grow, or I felt I had achieved everything I could in that role.
Because even if your last boss was an absolute nightmare, complaining about them to a potential new boss is the fastest way to detonate the interview.
It's just a huge red flag.
It signals that you lack discretion, or worse, that you might be the common denominator in workplace drama. Framing your departure as a quest for growth keeps the entire focus on your ambition.
Now, the source also tackles how to discuss past work challenges, and they emphasize using the STAR method.
Yes. Situation, task, action, result.
Right. And I see the STAR method recommended constantly in career advice, but I think people often misunderstand how to actually deploy it.
How's that?
Well, it tells you what the acronym means, but it rarely explains the mechanism of why it works to persuade the listener's brain. Like, how does structuring an answer this way actually change the interviewer's perception of you?
To understand the mechanism, we really have to look at how the human brain processes information, especially under the fatigue of conducting multiple interviews.
Because they're probably doing like 5 of these a day.
Exactly. They are exhausted. Imagine an interviewer asks a candidate to describe a time they overcame a major obstacle at work. A candidate who doesn't use a structure will likely give a rambling answer.
Just word vomit.
Right. They might say, oh, my last project was a disaster. The client kept changing their mind. My team was stressed. I had to work late every night to fix the code. And eventually, we just barely got it launched, but it was really hard.
And the brain hears that and just registers chaos. There is no clear narrative through line, just a list of complaints and a really vague resolution.
Exactly. It forces the interviewer to work incredibly hard to extract any evidence of your actual competence.
Which they don't want to do.
No, they don't. Now contrast that with the STAR method. You start with the situation and task to set a clean stage. We had a critical software launch, and the client changed the core requirements 2 weeks before the deadline.
Clean, factual setup.
Then you isolate your specific action. I organized an emergency sync with the developers, reprioritized our sprint backlog, and set up daily 10-minute check-ins with the client to ensure alignment.
Look at you go.
Right. And finally, you deliver the result. We launched on time, retained the client, and actually reduced post-launch bugs by 15%.
Wow, that completely changes the psychological impact. The interviewer's brain doesn't have to work to find your value.
Not at all.
You have packaged your problem-solving skills into a highly digestible, satisfying narrative arc. You are the protagonist who encountered friction, took deliberate action, and achieved a measurable victory.
The STAR method works because it mirrors the structure of a good story. It keeps you from getting lost in the irrelevant emotional details of how stressed you were, and focuses the listener's attention strictly on your behavioral competencies.
Okay, but let me throw a wrench into this.
Go for it.
The STAR method is great for dissecting challenges that happened in the past. But I think the scariest part of a phone interview isn't recounting past challenges, it is the challenges happening live on the call.
Oh, like technical issues.
Yeah, what happens when the audio cuts out, or the interviewer has a heavy accent, or you just fundamentally misunderstand the premise of the question they just asked you?
This is a critical failure point for many candidates. Because the immediate visceral instinct when we don't understand something in a high-pressure situation is panic.
Total panic.
We fear that asking for clarification will make us look incompetent or slow or foolish.
The urge is to just guess, to just start talking, throw a bunch of professional buzzwords at the wall, and pray you accidentally answer whatever they were trying to ask.
And the source vehemently warns against that instinct. Guessing destroys your credibility instantly.
Because if you guess wrong,
if you spend 2 minutes confidently answering the wrong question, you demonstrate a profound lack of active listening skills. It is far worse to show you don't listen than to show you didn't hear something clearly.
that is such a good distinction. So what do you say instead?
The source provides phrases designed to maintain control. Things like, could you clarify what you mean by that? Or, I want to make sure I understand your question correctly. Are you asking specifically about this software or the process as a whole?
Oh, I love that. It sounds so professional. And they even suggest a phrase for when you hear the question perfectly, but you just don't have an immediate answer.
Oh, this is my favorite one.
They recommend saying, that's a great question. Let me take a moment to think about that.
That is perhaps the most powerful phrase in the entire script. Taking a moment to think is a strategic pause.
Because when you are nervous, 5 seconds of silence feels like an absolute eternity.
It feels like an hour.
Yeah.
But to the interviewer, that pause does not signal a failure of intelligence. It signals high-level professionalism.
You are owning the silence rather than rushing to fill it with panic.
It demonstrates that you are a thoughtful individual who values accuracy over speed. It shows you have the composure to control the pacing of the conversation, even when you are put on the spot.
And eventually, if you navigate the difficult questions and you own the silence, you survive the unscripted testing phase.
You've made it through the worst part.
And just when you think you can finally let your guard down and breathe, the dynamic shifts one last time. The interviewer turns the floor over to you and asks, do you have any questions for us?
According to the material from Emma and Jack, this is where many candidates stumble right at the finish line. There is a golden rule here. You must never say, no, I think I'm fine, or no, you covered everything.
Never say no.
Never. You must always ask at least 2 questions to demonstrate genuine engagement.
And they equip you with an arsenal of questions to deploy. Things like, what does a typical day in this role look like? What are the biggest challenges the team is facing right now? How would you describe the company culture?
And of course, what are the next steps in the interview process?
Right, always ask about next steps.
Declining to ask questions is universally interpreted by hiring managers as a lack of intellectual curiosity, or worse, a lack of genuine interest in the role itself.
So what does this all mean? Let me frame it this way. Imagine going on a blind date.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You sit down at the restaurant and the other person asks you all these deep, probing questions about your life, your career goals, and your past relationships.
Sounds intense for a first date, but...
And you give these beautifully polished 90-second answers. You talk about yourself for an hour straight, and then at the end of the evening, they look at you and say, is there anything you'd like to know about me? And you just shrug, look at your watch, and say, no, I think I'm fine.
That would be a profoundly alienating date.
It shows zero genuine interest in a two-way relationship. It reveals that you were simply there to perform a monologue. A professional interview functions on the exact same social dynamic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, asking these questions is a final mechanism for evaluating if this company is actually a good fit for you.
Because it is a two-way street.
Exactly. We talked earlier about claiming agency and neutralizing the status gap during the pregame emails. This final phase is where you fully exercise that agency.
By interviewing them back.
Right. By asking about their daily realities, their biggest challenges, and their culture, you are reinforcing that a healthy interview is a mutual assessment. You are not just sitting there hoping they deem you worthy. You are actively investigating their environment to see if you actually want to give them your time, your energy, and your talent.
You are reclaiming your power right before you hang up the phone.
That's a great way to put it.
And then you have to stick the landing. You end strong with phrases like, "Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to hearing from you soon." You maintain that warmth, that audible smile, right until the connection cuts out.
And don't forget the ultimate final impression. The source dictates that you send a concise follow-up email after the call to thank them again and confirm everything discussed.
Oh yes, the follow-up email.
It functions as the final punctuation mark on the persona you have built. It cements your image as organized, courteous, and highly engaged.
It puts your name in front of their eyes one last time.
Exactly. Permanently attaching it to a feeling of gratitude and proactive professionalism.
It really is a remarkably complete blueprint, taking you from the invisible handshake of the very first email all the way to the final follow-up.
They really covered all the bases.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listeners, with a final thought to mull over, because it gets to the core of what we are really doing when we utilize these strategies.
What's on your mind?
Well, we have spent this entire time unpacking a source material that focuses heavily on deploying highly specific, standardized phrases I have been working in. One area I am working to improve is, my goal is to. It is an absolute masterclass in constructing a flawless professional mask to mitigate the anxiety of a phone call.
It definitely is a mask.
Right. But it makes me wonder about the cost of that perfection. If we become so hyper-focused on perfectly deploying these standardized scripts, if we format all of our messy human life experiences into neat little STAR method narratives just to satisfy a hiring manager's cognitive load, how much of our actual personality are we erasing in the process?
That is a really profound point.
Like, these frameworks are incredibly powerful tools to project competence and land the job. But if you spend the entire interview performing a perfectly synchronized corporate script, do you run the risk of getting hired for a culture that fits the mask you wore, rather than the authentic person you actually are?
You might end up in a job you hate because you pretended to be someone else to get it.
Exactly. It is a really delicate balance between playing the game to get your foot in the door and protecting enough of your genuine self to ensure it is a room you actually want to be in. Something to think about the next time you find yourself smiling into an empty room, waiting for your phone to ring. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been a pleasure exploring the mechanics of this with you.